Good, this is gonna be my first review of the Bleach manga. I didn't actually go over all of my plans for this in my series introduction video. So I'm gonna use the beginning of this video to kind of finish talking about that shit. So I didn't go over my history of Bleach. Now, as I've stated before, I've never read a manga before. This one I figured would be the first one I would do. As far as Bleach goes, I watched the anime, and I had kind of a on and off thing with it at the first. Adult Swim would show kind of reruns of it and stuff, and Toonami was kind of dying around the time it started showing it, so it wasn't something that I had like super exposure to because it was on real late and stuff. But I saw like the early episodes where Ichigo's fighting Hollows. I remember distinctly with my friend watching the episode where he's in his inner world, talking with Zangetsu and stuff. I remember some of him fighting with Byakuya and stuff. His fight with Renji was one of the first things I ever saw. But I really didn't start watching it seriously until way late in the series, watching Ichigo's fight with Grimmjow. That was kind of where I really jumped into it. And that was when I was, I don't know, 13, 14. So it would have been around 2010, 2011. And I watched it then until the end of its run when Toonami finally came back. On my Xbox, Microsoft did a free weekend for Bleach, so I ended up getting the first 30 episodes and watched those. I watched all of it dubbed, obviously. And then I went and I started watching it. Past that point, watched the whole Soul Society arc, watched a lot of the Bount arc, and then jumped out of it. And then recently on Netflix, I finished the Bount arc. And Netflix obviously stops right at the beginning of the Rancor arc, the Wakamundo arc, Rancor stuff. So I've never seen all of the Wakamundo or Rancor stuff up until the fight with Grimmjow. I did see the first fight between Ichigo and Grimmjow on YouTube in 2014. But I mean, that's obviously seen with no context and stuff. So most of the stuff with the visors and stuff I've never seen. So this has been my first experience, exposure to that. And obviously I've not seen any of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. That doesn't mean I don't know stuff about it. I figured that I would never experience 1,000-Year Blood War, so I just read a bunch of stuff about it on Wikipedia and stuff, so I'm not really ignorant to it. Because I didn't know that it was ever going to be animated or not, and I never thought I was going to read the manga either. So I'm definitely not going into this blind or ignorant, but I will try to make my reviews somewhat as though I don't know where everything's going in the future, even though I somewhat do. Before this, I had to buy the fucking volume. I'm already paying a fucking subscription on Shonen Jump, but apparently that's not enough. So I had to buy the fucking volume on the Shonen Jump app to read it. So that's how I'm doing it. So there's 72 volumes, there's 680 something chapters. And then there's obviously 366 anime episodes. And the way I'm going to be doing this, for this one, because chapter 1 is so fucking long, I'm just going to do it chapter 1, episode 1, because they kind of cover the same material. But for the future after this, I'm going to be doing 2 manga chapters each manga chapter is going to get their own video, but I'm going to read 2 manga chapters and then watch an episode. So in a day, technically you could say I could review 2 manga chapters and then 1 anime episode. that doesn't necessarily mean that's the maximum I would do in a day, or even the minimum that I would do. I might only review a chapter in a day. But that's the plan of it. And the plan, I already think I said that the plan for that was I can review the story through the manga and the art and stuff. And then for the anime, I can cover it as an adaptation and make these videos shorter. This one's obviously going to be long as fuck, but whatever. So getting into this, I got two covers. So I have the volume cover, which is just Ichigo with his Zanpakuto. So early looking Ichigo. He looks cool despite the early design kind of looking off. There's a funny author's note from Kubo where he's just kind of like, be good to my volume and stuff. Obviously that doesn't apply for me since electronic. And then a weird like info dump about Kubo. It said he had a previous 4-chapter manga in Shonen Jump called Zombie something. It's weird. I don't know if that was Viz or if that was Shonen Jump or who it was that wrote that, but it was just weird. Yeah. So, chapter 1 of Bleach starts with the moon. And it's the classic, like, crescent moon that goes like that, and then comes around like that. You see it a lot in what we will come to know as Wakamundo. For whatever reason, Kubo loves drawing this type of a moon. I don't know what it represents, if it represents anything, but he loves to draw it. And then we see a butterfly, and those will become relevant throughout the story. It looks really good. It's really like inky and stuff. And obviously that's just because Kubo is a great artist. Then you see like a weird paper fan thing that's stretched out. I know there's a scene where you see that kind of go like that and it's like collapsing. I don't know if that's in an opening or what it is, but I know that it's somewhere in the anime, but it wasn't in the anime episode. So I don't know. It might be in the first opening. I don't remember. I know I've seen that scene animated, but it was not in the episode. But it was here in this manga chapter, and I don't know what it represents. But we meet our first Shinigami, and she says that she feels spiritual power or something, and she's on these light posts, and she's jumping. And then we see the first chapter cover page of Bleach. And Ichigo really just looks so different from what he will eventually look like. He's almost unrecognizable. His like hair just looks like smaller kind of, and just it's drawn different. His face is just like really triangular. Later on it would be a little more defined as a face, but just early on it just looks weird, and he looks really, I don't know, undefined and skinny, I guess is the best way to put it. In these early chapters. No, this is only the first chapter, but I'm assuming he's gonna look like this for a little bit. I don't think it looks bad. I'm not complaining about it. It's just different. Ichigo means strawberry. I don't know what relevance that has. I'm sure it has something to do with strawberries. I don't know. Naturally, as a shonen protagonist, Ichigo is a good person. And he's fighting thugs. I thought the translations here were a bit odd. They have some lines that just don't sound normal. They sound like localization lines. I can't think of any specific examples, but stuff just sounded weird. The thugs kept calling each other Lil, meaning little. Which I don't, I think in the anime they were calling each other Chan, but it's just weird. They didn't need to add that because it just makes the characters sound odd. But even for this first page just being a fucking kind of a gag thing, the shading in the character art just still looks incredible. For this just being him beating up a couple of thugs, it just looks so fucking good, and you can just tell that the series is gonna look incredible. We see Ichigo kind of beating the guys up. As we find out that he can see ghosts, and he's kind of berating them about knocking over this vase. This vase was for a little girl. Then we get these two information dumps about Ichigo that are telling us that his occupation as a high school student, that his hair is orange, his eyes are brown, and he has a special power. We get that twice, and I don't know why we needed it twice. I mean, I guess it's trying to really accentuate that he has a special ability, but, like, I didn't need all that. He could have just done it once. And it says his special ability, and then he points back and he says, you should apologize to her, because they apologized to him for knocking over the vase. But he points to the little girl. And apparently they can see her because they freak out and say sorry, and then they run away, and we see the girl, and she's like half bloody and shit. And she actually died in some horrible way. Their expressions are really great, but apparently they could see it. Which means that Ichigo can make ghosts visible, which is weird. And I didn't know he could do that, because the anime did not do this, and I'll talk about that in the anime review. But man, there are two very different ways that this scene turns out that just completely change your interpretation of what the fuck is going on. We kind of find out that he helps ghosts out regularly. He comes home and his father attacks him. I thought I wrote that down. Oh no, there it is. You know, I found out he helps ghosts regularly with this kind of stuff, trying to help them move on and stuff. I get the idea that his father attacks him quite often, and he continues to attack him throughout this whole scene. It's kind of a comedic scene. This was also weird. His sister says that she can see ghosts. And his sister's names are Karin and Yuzu. And this is another thing that seemed very different in the manga and the anime. And I'll kind of break my thing of not knowing what's going on. In the anime, Karin can kind of see ghosts. And there are a few characters like this that can kind of see ghosts. But Karin can kind of see ghosts, and Yuzu can't see ghosts at all. And that's how it is in the anime. But in the manga here, it seemed like... Hey, okay, hang on, let me find my place again real quick. Yeah. His sister says, oh, hey, there's another one, as he's dealing with his dad, and he turns around and says, oh, there's another ghost. And it seemed like Yuzu was the one pointing out there was another ghost here. And then Karin calls Ichigo Strawberry. Now in the anime, it's Karin who points out there's another ghost. And Yuzu obviously says she can't see them. And in both the anime and the manga, Yuzu kind of asks Karin about seeing the ghosts, and Karin says, I can barely see them, they're kind of like fuzzy outlines, but I refuse to accept that they exist. And then there's a comedic scene of Yuzu just kind of staring at the ghost being depressed and stuff. Obviously all of this early stuff is just showing us their everyday life and how it's just comedic, schlocky shit, before everything goes to shit due to all the stuff. But yeah, in this so far it seems like Yuzu can see ghosts and Karin just kind of can't. but I don't know. I might have just misinterpreted the panels. I might not have realized who was talking at what time. But it seemed like Yuzu was the one who pointed out the ghost. Lots of slice of life comedy. I already kind of talked about that. There's a memorial of the family's mother, Ichigo's father's wife. And we cut to Ichigo in his bedroom and he sees the butterfly enter his room, and then we see Rukia. The Shinigami. And she kind of leaps in and he's just kind of like, what? Who are you? And she just jumps down and she kind of walks around and I think says, I don't sense it here or something. And then Ichigo kicks her and basically accuses her of being a burglar and is berating her and stuff, and she's shocked that he can see her. And then Ichigo's father jumps in his room and attacks him. Basically asks him why he's being so loud, and Ichigo says, what do you mean I'm stopping an intruder? And Ichigo's father doesn't know what he's talking about, and he points to the Shinigami, and he basically said, I don't see anything. And Ichigo says, the girl in the samurai outfit, and he can't see her, so that is what's happening there. And then we get our first look at the thing that the Shinigami's hunting, the Hollow. And then we come back to Ichigo after the Shinigami has explained who she is and what she does and the purpose of her and the Soul Society, hunting hollows, all this shit. He basically goes over everything she told him, and she says, yeah, you got it. And then he flips a table, and there's this funny thing that says that on the table, it says this table's only used for gags. And that was, I think, a funny addition by Kubo. But basically, he doesn't believe her, that she's a Shinigami, and he basically tells her to go play Shinigami elsewhere. And he just thinks she's a ghost. And then she uses Bakudo #1 Sai to subdue him. And his arms get wrapped behind his back, and then he falls down, and he's basically being suppressed by a Bakudo. Bakudo is a Kido technique used for restraint or defense. It's basically a non-combative Kido, and we'll get more into Kido later, but that's basically what it is. And then she says that she's lived nearly 10 of his lifetimes. And I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I think that means if he's 15, we do 15 times 10, and we figure she's nearly 100 years old, I think is what that means. But the first time I ever heard that in the anime, I thought that meant she's lived 10 human lifetimes, which would mean that she's 1,000 years old. But I don't think that's right. I don't think Ruki is 1,000 years old. I think she's near 100 years old. She basically tells him that she won't execute him. She would like to kill him, but she won't because she's not permitted to just kill randomly. And she brings her sword down and hits the spirit in the head and performs a console. Basically sends the spirit to the Soul Society. And he was, before that, was saying, I don't want to go to hell, but she tells him she's not going to hell, he's going to Soul Society. And then she explains to Ichigo the whole thing about the souls. Now there's holes and there's hollows. Holes are the normal spirits that we see, and then hollows are the evil ones that hunt them. And basically that they eat souls. And Ichigo kind of asks why she has shitty drawings, and then she draws a mustache on him. And Viz had her call him something like bonjour something in French. It was really poor, just bad. I didn't understand what the fuck she said. And then Ichigo starts kind of freaking out and telling her that she needs to go hunt the Hollow. And the Shinigami kind of starts talking about, well, yeah, I'd like to hunt the Hollow, but I don't know where it is. And she kind of starts explaining her situation to him. And he's sitting there freaking out, and he just finally just says, can't you hear it? And she basically just says, what do you mean? And then she hears the Hollow and realizes it's right on top of her, and she starts freaking out. And she starts kind of going over like, why couldn't I hear it before? I could hear it, but there's something in the way. It's like it's being blocked out by something else. And then we hear Yuzu and Karin cry out, and there's a big crash, and Ichigo begins trying to break free of the restraints to go and try and help Karin and Yuzu. And the Shinigami warns him not to resist the Kido because it's just going to end up hurting him. And that he can't fight the Hollow anyways. And then Shinigami opens the door, and Karin comes into the door and tells Ichigo that their father and Yuzu were attacked, and that he needs to run away, I think is what she tells him. And then Karin loses consciousness. And Shinigami's sitting there telling him she had just lost consciousness, she'll be okay. And then Ichigo gets up, resisting what Sai does is it not only binds your arms behind your back, but it forces you to the ground. It basically restrains your entire body. And he's standing up, and he muscles his way out and breaks free of the restraints of it. And she's like shocked that he was able to break out of it. And then Ichigo grabs a baseball bat and he runs down the stairs going after the Hollow. He finds his father, he's up against the wall bleeding. And he sees the Hollow. And Ichigo's scared of the Hollow. He was expecting it to look like a person, not just a giant monster, but it is a giant monster. It's got big ass teeth and claws and shit. It's not human at all. And he's sitting there shaking and freaking out, and he can't bring himself to move. But then he sees it's holding Yuzu. And he breaks out of his trance and he runs toward it to hit it, but it just smacks him, breaking his bat in half and it's slamming him against the wall. It walks up and it prepares to kill him, but then the Shinigami jumps down and cuts the Hollow's arm, and making it drop Yuzu. And she reveals that the Hollow was likely attracted to a high amount of spiritual energy, a high amount of Ryatsu. And that because of all of the things that were going on, it would appear that it was going after him. And then Ichigo kind of stands up, and he kind of is realizing like he's the reason that his family was attacked, and he's kind of just freaking out. And the Shinigami gets distracted and starts trying to talk to Ichigo, trying to comfort him and say that that wasn't what she meant. She wasn't accusing him of getting his family involved. And then the Hollow hits her to a wall because she got distracted. And Ichigo stands up and he gets ready to defend Yuzu and try and fight the Shinigami. And Shinigami's berating herself for being careless. Ichigo challenges the Hollow. He's standing in front of it and basically says, if you want to eat me, then go ahead. It leaps toward him to eat him, and then the Shinigami jumps in front of him. And it basically bites down on her, but she has her sword inside its mouth and manages to slash its mouth to get herself free. But at that point, she's already injured. It's driven away holding its mouth in pain, but she falls to the ground because it basically was able to bite down on her. And she's just no longer in a condition to fight. And Ichigo's still kind of frustrated that now he's made her get injured and that they're all going to die because of him. Shinigami offers to make Ichigo Shinigami so he can defeat the Hollow. Ichigo starts thinking about how his sisters only told him to run away. They didn't care about themselves. They just cared about him, and so he wants to protect them, and he will accept becoming Shinigami. Shinigami reveals her name. It is Rukia Kuchiki. And then the hollow begins approaching them, and Ichigo is stabbed through the chest or throat with Rukia's Zanpakuto, her sword. It's like right here, I think. Like upper part of the chest. There's a blinding light as the hollow is coming toward them, and then its arm is cut off. And we see a shadow, and we see Ichigo as a Shinigami. Rukia's sword has become massive, or Zanpakuto. And Rukia's kind of in shock because she's never seen a sword this big. And the sword is like a giant fucking great sword, basically, that slants over Ichigo's back. And I want to get into a thing about great swords because I think this is interesting. I believe, given how late this manga was being written, that this is inspired, obviously, by Inuyasha and Berserk. I don't know the history of great swords in like Japanese media. I know there are video games and stuff that have had them, but I think Berserk was like the first manga to have one, and I'm not sure. I just think that'd be interesting to see, kind of like if we go from Berserk to Inuyasha to Bleach, and see kind of, I don't know if that was like inspiration to inspiration to inspiration. I'm not saying that it was necessarily, but it seems like it was, because Inuyasha would always hold his sword over his back the same way Ichigo does. They obviously have very similar swords at a certain point. And I think Guts also holds it that way occasionally, but not as much. And his sword obviously isn't as... Well, he does get a really big sword, though. I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting to kind of know the history of like great swords in anime and know exactly what inspired this. The Ichigo having a big ass great sword, because I feel like it's that. I feel like it's Berserk and Inuyasha kind of inspired Bleach. But yeah, Rukia is kind of going on about like she realizes that the reason she couldn't sense the hollow is because Ichigo, he had so much power that it was overwhelming her. And of course, Ichigo just looks badass. He got a really cool outfit on, cool design. I've already said Kubo has just incredible designing characters. And Ruki is just shocked by how powerful Ichigo really is, how much power he has, how he was able to break out of her bonds as a human, how he's even able to see her and see ghosts and stuff. She's just in shock. The hollow kind of comes at Ichigo, he cuts his leg off real quick, and as it's falling, he slashes it right through the face and it dies. And then we get a little flash up of Ichigo's data again, except this time under occupation, along with student, it says Shinigami. And that's where the first chapter ends. It was pretty good. Obviously, my main thing for anime and stuff is to see fights, so I'll have more to talk about on like chapters with fights, big fights and stuff. And that comes later. This early slice of life stuff I'm probably gonna have very short reviews for, but we'll see how it goes. This was a long video just because I had so much stuff to add on. And also, this was a really long chapter. It's like 60 pages, so... yeah. On to the anime review.